Due to technological developments in the late 19th and early 20th century, film became one of the most widespread forms of media by the mid-20th century. Post-World War II, the American film industry was the most influential in the world. Of all films produced since the war, perhaps the most influential was Star Wars. In 1971, a young filmmaker named George Lucas came up with the idea of creating a space fantasy film. His previous film, THX 1138, had been released earlier that year and was a relative failure. He believed the poor reception was due to the pessimistic tone of the film, so he wanted to create a more positive movie. Later that year, he founded his own production studio, Lucasfilm, and was soon granted a 2-film contract with the United Artists. The first film was the 1973 movie American Graffiti, a massive success. Lucas wanted his space fantasy movie to be a feature-length adaptation of Flash Gordon, but was unable to secure the rights. Lucas decided to look into the works that inspired Flash Gordon, all the way back to a 1905 book, Gulliver on Mars, and the works of Jules Verne. Inspired by the political climate of the early 1970s, especially the Vietnam War, Lucas decided to look into history about how democracies became dictatorships. Within the first few months of 1973, he had developed a script he called Journal of the Wills, about the training of a Jedi Bindu commando named C.J. Thorpe by Mace Windu. Can you spot the inspiration for his later ideas? Lucas wrote his story with the goal of making a new fantasy story, like the westerns and pirate tales he grew up with, later saying it was, quote, closer to the Brothers Grimm than it is to 2001. In 1974, Lucas began developing the now familiar parts of the story, such as the Death Star or Chewbacca, based off of his Alaskan Mameluke, Indiana. After countless rewrites, Lucas began work on the film in 1975, hiring Ralph McQuarrie to make concept art. The final draft of the script was completed in March of 1976, and began filming with a budget of $8.25 million. Throughout the filming process, most of the crew expected the movie to be a complete failure. Many of the actors felt like it was a children's movie and a waste of their talents. Upon its release on May 25, 1977, Star Wars was an instant success, earning over $2.5 million in its opening weekend. Building off of the original success, the Star Wars Holiday Special was produced for Christmas of 1978. The Holiday Special was a massive failure and never aired again. Nonetheless, Lucas created a sequel in 1980, Star Wars Episode V, The Empire Strikes Back. The Empire Strikes Back was another huge success, introducing new beloved characters such as Yoda and establishing Star Wars as a franchise. It is often considered the best film of the series. In 1983, Episode 6, The Return of the Jedi, my personal favorite, completed the original trilogy. Star Wars' success continued through most of the 1980s. In 1987, for the 10th anniversary of A New Hope, Star Tours was opened in Disneyland. After that, however, there was a sharp decline in the release of Star Wars media. In 1991, the break ended with the release of the first book of Timothy Zahn's Thrawn trilogy, Heir to the Empire. This began a renaissance of Star Wars media in what became the expanded universe, now called Star Wars Legends. In 1999, George Lucas released the first film of his prequel trilogy, Episode I, The Phantom Menace. Phantom Menace saw some negative reception, but Lucas continued the prequels nonetheless. Episode II, Attack of the Clones, was released in 2002, followed by Episode III, The Revenge of the Sith, in 2005, bridging the prequels to the originals. In 2008, the Clone Wars animated series was released, being the only non-film media to remain canon. In 2012, Lucasfilm was sold to Disney. In 2015, Disney released Star Wars Episode VII, The Force Awakens, starting their sequel trilogy. The Force Awakens broke multiple box office records with the highest-grossing opening weekend. Disney's sequel trilogy continued with the controversial Episode VIII, The Last Jedi, in 2017, and will conclude in just over a week with 2019's Episode IX, The Rise of Skywalker. In 2016, Rogue One, a Star Wars story, was the first of Disney's anthology movies, followed by 2018's less successful Solo, establishing a promising new future for Star Wars media. At this point, you're probably thinking, this is great and all, but what does this have to do with history? Well, first of all, one of the best ways to understand a people is to look into their popular culture. The popularity of Star Wars for multiple generations suggests that there is much to learn from us about the stories it tells. For example, the story of a tyrannical empire reflects the Cold War-era fears that dominated the country. Another show of Star Wars' historical significance is its influence in other fields. One of the best examples of this is Ronald Reagan's 1983 proposal for the Strategic Defense Initiative, commonly labeled as Star Wars. I will go into more detail on that in a later video. I know that this is a huge change from my other videos, even my cultural or holiday special videos. But with the upcoming release of the final part of the Skywalker Saga, I wanted to make this. Star Wars has been one of my favorite movie series ever, and in many ways got me into history. Many parts of Star Wars show clear resemblance to history, such as the dogfights of the TIE Fighters and X-Wings to the World War II dogfights, or the fall of the Republic in the prequels to the fall of the Roman Republic. I am sadly aware of the controversy surrounding Star Wars in the past few years, especially since The Last Jedi, so I'd like to avoid that as much as possible here. Personally, I enjoy Star Wars for its entertainment value and leave it at that. Star Wars has brought countless great things in the past and links generations together. So let's look at the good and ignore what we consider bad. Also, I'd like to thank Samuel Kim for the music in this video. He was kind enough to allow me to use his compositions of John Williams' Star Wars music for my video. I will link his channel and Patreon in the description. I would love it if y'all could help show our thanks to him for allowing me to use his music. I hope you've enjoyed this video. This is Matthew, and I hope to see you next time, and may the Force be with you. Always.